Hi crafters, welcome back to my channel. Today we are learning how to draft the straight skirt. I hope you enjoy the tutorial. While drafting, you're going to need several tools. I have different types of rulers. This is a set square, 30 centimeter ruler, smaller set squares, and different French curves. We're going to use the French curves to shape our curves, like on the hip and the waist. We also need a pencil, an eraser, tape measure, and pens. When you're drafting a straight skirt, you're going to need approximately 4 or 5 measurements. That is your natural waist, your hip measurements, the full measurement for your skirt. Then we'll also need the hip to waist measurement. The waist measurement is taken around the belly button. That is where the natural waist is. So you're going to take the circumference of that body part to get your natural waist. Hip measurement is again circumference of the hip area. That is the fullest part of the hip. This goes all the way to the back, to the seat. Then we have our waist to hip measurement from your natural waist up to the fullest part of your hip. This is just a straight line. This is usually approximately 7 to 8 inches depending on how narrow or wide the person's hips are. Then the full length measurement is taken from the natural waist up to the desired length of your skirt. This depends on the design that you want for your skirt. In my case, my waist measurement is 36 inches, the hips is 46 inches, waist to hip is 8 inches, then full length of the skirt is 24 inches. As we start drafting, we are going to make vertical and horizontal lines on this side of our pattern. This is going to make a triangle that will help us properly shape or make the lines to make our skirt. With your tape measure or your ruler, you're going to go to a corner and measure 1.5 inches this way. Then we'll measure again 1.5 inches horizontally. So this is the source of our rectangle. To have straight lines, you can measure across. Have like 3 or 4 points that you're going to join. While drafting, you need to make sure that your lines are straight. If your lines are not straight, they're going to affect the way your garment is going to come out. I'll take 1.5, 1.5, 3 points. Then I'm going to join the dots and make a straight line. Having a set square makes it easy to have that proper right angle or rectangle. Draw my lines all the way across my brown paper. The brown paper is what we use to draft patterns. You can also have a different kind of paper as long as you can see the writings on it. We use this to also adapt patterns. Like in this case, when we make our straight skirt, we can adapt this straight skirt to different types of skirts. Oh, I have my rectangle. This is where I'm going to start drafting my skirt. I have my rectangle here. This is because the rectangle is a quarter of my waist measurement. Quarter of your waist measurement because you can actually divide your body into 4 equal parts. That is the front divide by 2 and the back divide by 2. So if you take one side of your body, let's say the right side of your body on the front, that is a quarter. So the measurement here is 46 divided by 4. You can also draft your pattern in halves. That is, I want to draft my back here and my front. So I'm going to take my hip measurement, divide by 2. Today it's just going to be hip measurement divided by 4. So we're doing it in quarters. Again, when we want to find our waist, we're going to divide our waist by 4 so that you have 1/4 of your body. Now this one is the front, the quarter of the front. We also have a quarter of the back. We're just going to do the same thing again. The only difference will be the darts at the waistline. So I have my rectangle. The next thing that I'm going to do is take my waist measurement, that is the natural waist, divide by 4. So the waist was 36, divide by 4, that is 9 inches. Then I'm going to add darts. Darts are used to shape your waist. They create fullness, they control fullness. So my waist is 9 inches. Then I want my darts to be 2 inches each. I'm going to have 2 darts on the front of my skirt. So one dart is 2 centimeters and another one is 2 centimeters. In total, 4 centimeters. So what you're going to do is find your waist and then add the 4 centimeters. The waist being 36, I'm going to divide it by 4 and I have 9 inches. I know I've mentioned inches and the same time I've mentioned centimeters. These two metrics are different, yes, but there's a way you can convert one to get the other. So what I mean is 1 inch is equal to 2.5. This is where my natural waist is. Starting point here is 0.1. Then to your hip measurement is 0.2. Then I have my natural waist. What I have left to do is to draw in my darts. I wanted them to be 4 centimeters. You can convert, or a little trick that I use, I just measure 9 inches, then I'm going to add 4 centimeters. I'll just switch my ruler to centimeters and mark 4 centimeters. And then this is where my natural waist will be, and I'll mark that as 0.3. Natural waist. If you have your tape measure, you can actually see the big numbers. These are inches, and it says here 60 inches. So what I meant was 1 inch is equal to 2.5 centimeters. So you can actually hold that and turn over, and we have 2.5 centimeters. When you look closely, it just shows that 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters. So what I've done is I've marked 9 inches, which is here, my quarter of the waist, and then I've added 4 centimeters for the darts. The next thing I'll do is trace my hip line. Where is my hip line? From point 1, I'm going to measure the measurement I got from my natural waist all to the hip line. So mine was 8 inches. We have from point 1 up to point 4 at 8 inches. Mark the 8 inches mark. This is where my waistline is, and this is hip line is, sorry, this is point 4. Then I'm going to square across. Square across meaning from this point this way, I'm going to get my hip line. Mark 8 inches across. This and lastly 8 inches. Then this is what I mean by squaring across. I'm joining all the dots that I have my hip line. So this is my hip line, and I'm going to write it as hip line. I had my waistline, but we are not yet done drawing my waistline. This is point 4. Then it squares across to point 5. Just made it a little more legible. After you have drawn your hip line, next we're going to mark our waist and that line. Now in drafting, Our waistline is not a straight line. Usually it is a curved line, so it's going to go upwards like this. What you're going to do is take your tape measure again or your ruler, and you're going to measure 1.25 centimeters from point 2. From here, 1.25 centimeters, you can round off to 1.3. This is where my 1.3 is, and I'm going to mark that. And then I'll join the line. Good. And then from there, I'm going to join my new point, which is 0.6 to 0.1. So then, before I continue, I'm going to measure 0.1 to 5 to 6, sorry, and then divide it into 3 equal parts. In centimeters, I feel that would be easy to divide. This is, we have 29.5 centimeters. So go ahead and measure 1 to 6, then divide into 3. The measurement I got is 9.8 centimeters. So from point 1, I'm going to have 9.8, 5, 6, 7, 8, then mark this point. Then again from there, 9.8. The reason why I'm dividing my waistline, my new waistline, into 3 equal parts is because I want to have 2 darts on the front of my skirt. So that 1 is here and that 2 is here. So this is the reason why. Then from there, I'm going to measure 2 centimeters each for each dart. So what I mean by 2 centimeters for each dart, this is the center point of our dart, meaning from here, the start of the dart is 1 centimeter, then here another centimeter. So this is the way I'm going to do it. Take your tape measure or your ruler, measure 1 centimeter on both sides of that line that you have marked. And for the next dart, I'll do the same, 1 centimeter and 1 centimeter. So darts have dart legs. This is dart legs, and then this is the center of our dart. Then our dart go up to a certain point. So again, from the center of your dart, the first dart is going to be, you can have it at 13 centimeters. So this is where the dart begins. Then I'll join my 2 points to complete my dart. Like so. And just to make it a little bit clear, that's our first dart, and it has a point. Then the second one is going to be 12 centimeters. And mark a point, 12 centimeters. Then bring that point to my dart leg. Like so. And the middle of the dart. So we have 2 darts with varying lengths. This one is 13 centimeters, this one is 12 centimeters. So we got up to 0.6. I'll mark this as 0.7, 8, 9, 10. Then we have 11, 12, 13, and 14. Our waistline is not yet complete. We need to curve our waistline. It's not a straight line. It needs to come curved from here all the way. At the beginning, it's a bit straight. We have different French curves for this. At times it's easy to use a hip curve. In my case, I don't have a hip curve. I'm going to just manipulate my curve that I have, make my waistline curved. It does take a lot of moving around, but with time you get the hang. Practice takes time and makes perfect. This one is a bit just to come like so, something like that. Then remember we had point 3. So this is where our point 6 was supposed to be, from point 3 to here. Then from point 6 we're going to curve up to point 5, which was our hip line. Again, a hip curve would be better instead of this one. But if we don't have a hip curve, this one also works. From that point it needs to be curved, and then it goes all the way down. So there is our hip, our waistline, and our hip line. So the last thing we're going to do is mark the length of our skirt, which was 24 inches. From the waist, point 1 to where 4 inches gets to. We're going to mark that and then square across. You square across to complete your skirt. Like so. So the correction here was from point 3 you go upwards to point 6, 1.5 centimeters. We have that 1 and that 2. Remember, as we're doing pattern drafting, we don't have seam allowances for our patterns, so we need to add those allowances afterwards. But this is our front skirt. I'm going to write front skirt. Since it's a front skirt and I want my front skirt to be on fold meaning I'm going to take this pattern as it is on this line. I won't have a cut here. I will fold my fabric into 2, then use this line as a guide and cut on this side, on the side, so that when I open up my pattern or my fabric, it's going to be half of the body, which is the front. So meaning what I mean by place on fold, I'm going to put my pattern instructions. Place on fold. That just means when I am going to lay my pattern and fabric, I'm going to fold my fabric into 2. Then I'll mark this as center front skirt. I am a size 14. Need to write the size. Then since I'm cutting it on fold, I'll cut 1. For the back, it's going to be cut 2 because we have a seam in the middle of our pattern. Here there's no seam. This line is just a guide to place on the fold of your skirt. Again, this can be used as your grain line. It is used to give you the direction you're going to lay your pattern on fabric. So the last thing that is left on this is adding seam allowances. I'll add seam allowances on this side, on the waistline, on the seam, on the side of the seam, and then on the hemline. They may vary. Usually seam allowances begin at 1.5 centimeters depending on where it is. Hemline can be an inch. Okay. So from here I will add seam allowances all the way around and mark. Then as I add seam allowances, this is going to be my cutting line. Where we've drawn, this is going to be our stitching line. And then here again we're going to have our stitching line. Some call it the seam line as well. Okay, so from where I've drawn, I'm going to add seam allowances. Other people prefer to have it in inches. You can have half an inch. Mark half an inch all the way around. Remember your waistline is curved. Mark your allowance all round. And our pattern is done, including pattern instructions. Pattern instructions is what is the name of the pattern, the size, the number of cards. We have the grain line or lace on fold line. You can have also things called notches just to match your patterns. Okay. Also have notches on your darts. So let's move on to the back of the skirt. So I've drawn my rectangle once again using the hip line as my guide. What I want to do now is put in my dart at the waistline. Now the difference between this back and the front is the back has one dart compared to the front that has two darts. So I'm going to take my natural waist again, divide by 4, 36 divide by 4, 9 inches, and then I'm going to add 1 inch, which is equivalent to 2.5 centimeters. So from the waistline, I'm going to mark 9 inches plus 1, 10 inches. So this is where my waist starts. And I'm going to mark that as point number 5. I'll measure my distance from point 6 to point 1, then divide by 3. This is 25.5 divide by 3. Measure your line, that line 1 to 6, divide by 3. My measurement is 8.5 centimeters. Now my dart is more towards the side rather than the front. So the third I'll measure from point 6 to where it will end. So this is 8.5 centimeters. Then this is where I'm going to have my dart, the middle of my dart. Our dart was in inches, 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. I'll get the half of that so that I have my dart legs. So like so. Then I'll mark this new point as point 7. Now my dart is going to be 12 centimeters long. If you notice, it has a slight slant because of this line that we are drawing. 12 centimeters long. If you're having a challenge using centimeters and inches, just remember to convert. 1 inch is equals to 2.5 centimeters. And my dart is now complete. So now what's left is to shape my waistline and my hip line. There we go. Then shape this one. Go straight. You have to keep working with all the French curves. If you don't have a hip curve, and this one is over straight. There you go. Now we have a proper waistline and our hip line. Then the last thing is drawing our hem. Now for the back, we are going to have a zip on the center back. Because of this, I'm going to cut 2 pieces of this because I'll have a seam here to allow my zip to be inserted. So I won't have my place on fold line like I did with the front. It's going to be just a grain line. Again, this is used to show the direction you're going to lay your pattern on fabric. Let's say you have fabric that is checked. You can decide to lay your pattern according to the checks, the way they are. Let's say you have a certain print. This is one that is used to guide you on how you're going to lay your pattern on the fabric. Then our pattern instructions. This is back skirt, size 14, cut 2. In this case, cut 2 because there's going to be a clear cut over here. What is left now is for me to cut out my pattern along this cutting line, and then that's it. The next thing will be to stitch our straight skirt, or if you decide to, you can still use this block of a straight skirt to adapt into different kinds of skirts. Thank you for watching till the very end. I hope this pattern drafting of the skirt has been very clear and simple for you. If you have any follow-up questions, if you have pieces you don't understand, please let me know in the comments. If you also enjoyed watching this tutorial, let me know. So what will be left for me is just to cut it out, and then I'll show you the final result. We have a back, and then we have our front skirt ready for stitching. Thank you for watching. Please remember to share, like, subscribe, and comment. See you on the next one, crafters.